Hi everyone. I want to talk to you about visual hierarchy. So anything we design, we're going to have to think about the visual hierarchy of the elements on the page or in the layout. So what does this say? If you can take a moment. Now, what does this say? Can you read this? So this reinforces how we instinctively look at a page due to how we read. Visual hierarchy can break that instinct. So the foundation or theoretical definition is, or concept of visual hierarchy is based off the Gestalt psychological theories. And that proposes that the human brain has this innate tendency to organize individual elements into a coherent, organized whole. So if we were to walk out in the grove, for instance, we see all the trees, but we're not gonna notice the individual stems and leaves first. We're gonna group those all together as one big tree. So essentially, this perceptual organization, or how smaller objects are grouped into form larger ones, this is all a way for us to mentally shortcut information or for solving problems when we're looking at things. Makes us more efficient. And the visual organization of elements within a design format to establish focal points based on their importance to the message and being communicated. So, as we were talking about Gestalt principles in the previous lecture, we are also thinking about dissimilar items. Here we have an extra space between established and focal, and it kind of brings us to this area where we can see focal point. We also see larger objects first. So if you saw the blue circle first, that is because we see the biggest things first. So we rank things in order of importance. And usually the way we rank things from importance is based on physical characteristics of those objects. That can be color, size, alignment, or just the character itself. So when we look at similar objects, we still try and differentiate the objects from one another based on physical characteristics. So if we look at color, this is all the same bit of information. And the left example has no hierarchy of information. We don't really know what part of the information presented is more important than the other. And we don't really know how to differentiate the type of information provided. In the middle example, it gives us a better hierarchy just by creating contrasting weight in the event title. The right example gives us even more hierarchy by adding the contrast with the color. So in both the middle and the right examples, we don't have to think about where to look at for the most part, but we know where the important information is, or the title of the event, which is what we should see first. And when we use contrast in color, we have another visual connection to other similar colors and elements on the page. We'll usually obsess with the contrast that causes our eyes to focus on an object that stands out due to just simply their difference in color in relation to the surrounding objects. In this example, we see the connection of the red color to bring out the graphic imagery and the important block of text. Those colors are similar, so we look for those similarities to lead us around the page, just like continuation. In this example, we followed the green color, or the yellowish color, around the page because it's standing out and contrasting with the other elements in the neutral and dark background. We see the hierarchy of information also. We see the main header and the name of the conference, the primary navigation, and the speakers, which are the supporting images and subheader. With size, we can break how we instinctively see a page. The reader usually will start in the top left, and then move horizontally to the top right, and then diagonally to the bottom or right before finishing with another horizontal movement to the bottom right. So we kind of zigzag our way down the page or down the layout. And that's usually how we think about or read a page. We call that the Z principle. But we can break how we instinctively see a page. Just by varying the size of items on a page, you can easily break that Z pattern tendency. Here we've broken it because we put the big square on the right, so we don't really see anything on the left. We immediately look right. In this example, we're breaking the Z pattern. We are starting and kind of moving central down the middle of the page. This is a rather obnoxious layout, but we're reinforcing the Z pattern here. We kind of zigzag our way back and forth. In this example, we're breaking the Z pattern again. We notice the biggest object first, or the bigger heart, and then move left and up. Similar to this, we're breaking the Z pattern here as well, starting with the bigger logo, or not logo, but a bigger headline type in the middle of the page, and then moving up to the logo. Alignment is another physical characteristic. So if we look at the various examples on this page, this is similar. I think this is the same type as we had in the other example. Each has has the same information. However, the different applications of adding weight, color, contrast, space, and interesting alignments helps us read through the information without thinking about it. So as designers, our job is to think for the reader or the viewer. They should not have to wonder or think about where to look first, second, third, etc. in the layout of the page. So by creating strong hierarchy using these applications, we provide a stronger visual connection to the content. So obviously the top left example here has the worst hierarchy, or the least effective. Bottom right has the most effective here. So it's about establishing an order of all the information in a work. So you have to ask yourself, where do you want people to look first? Where do you want them to look second, third, fourth, and so on? Everyone's different, but we all generally follow information in a similar order when we're looking at a strong layout. If we were looking at this web page, most of us would see the huge image first, and then it would lead us over to the main headline here with the steel grill outdoor cookware, and then we kind of look at the red that kind of leads us down to shop outdoor cookware and lead us to the sales and free shipping, and then we go to the little tagline underneath the main header here. It's kind of the kicker, and then we go up to see the primary and secondary navigations. With character as a physical characteristic, we can change the complexity in a character and still create hierarchy. So if some things, are considerably more or less complex than the objects around it, you can create hierarchy or make things stand out on the page. So even if the objects are similar in size and color, that difference in complexity will add to that visual interest. So as you think, remember the job of a designer is to think before the reader has to. So it should, as you begin with a layout and you've got all the content ready, you've got to think about, on paper first, of course, think about and consider all the content and the goals of the page. And once you've decided that intellectually on the hierarchy of the page, then start designing. What information is the most important? What's the second most information? Like what do people need to see second in terms of the content? And then you attempt to visually design that hierarchy. When we look at white space, or negative space in a layout is just as important as positive space. Something to keep in mind when you're designing a layout. Most early designers or new designers think they have to fill up every single nook and cranny of the page or the whatever their area is that they're designing, but that's not true. The white space is very important. And it's, you know, giving information in that negative space or white space is, it's just as important as that space being taken up by that information. So negative space can still provide visual weight. It can also contribute to the overall balance of the page. So in the end, it's all about balance. But if we look at these examples, imagine this text being text on the page. If you choose the example on the right, out of which one's more inviting to you, think about why you chose this example. This is more a balance of negative and positive space. There's a better hierarchy of information. We know where the image is. We know the important information based on the color and thickness of the blocks representing that information. And the negative space provides also a resting place for our eyes. It keeps people engaged in looking and reading the page. If we look at these examples, they're similar to the previous ones, except these are different information. However, these add extra negative space to the area in addition to color contrast, contrast in size, alignments, and proximity, or placing similar information together. So obviously the top left, the least effective, the bottom right, the most effective. But negative space allows you to focus on the content. It kind of envelops it. Even if it's not just a white color. It doesn't have to have, it can be a color in the background or the negative space. And if we look at from a marketing standpoint of different stores, these, think about how negative space influences how you view products within a store. I mean, Old Navy and Banana Republic, they're all owned by the same umbrella company, but each sales floor gives a completely different impression and different appeal to a different market of shopper. Generally, if we're looking at advertisements or even any type of layout for that matter, we're going to look at the shapes and color and contrast of the page overall. We're going to start with if there's any images. Most of the time we're going to look at those first. If it's living things in the pictures, we're going to notice their eyes. The photographs and any other art on the page, we'll continue looking at those, and then we usually go to the headline, then the body copy, and any other logos or labels. So here you can see that happening. We see the big image, smaller images, headers, and then the labels. Same here with this website. See the larger supporting image, then the smaller images, headers, and then other labels. Even with print layout, like a magazine cover, for instance, we're going to notice the image first, the name of the magazine, and the cover lines. Big image, smaller images, headers, and labels. So think about the hierarchy of things with any layout. This applies to any type of design. It doesn't have to be one particular type of design. These principles carry over to everything.